The morning sun had only begun to warm the rolling fields of Cedar Valley when Ethan Cole, the shy farmer known for speaking more to his crops than to the townsfolk, stepped out of his small wooden farmhouse and inhaled the crisp air that carried the scent of hay, soil, and distant pine. Ethan lived a quiet, isolated life at the far end of the valley, where the mountains rose like ancient guardians. Though he possessed the rugged build of a man who worked tirelessly from dawn to dusk, he carried a soft, hesitant gentleness in his eyes that made him appear almost fragile in the presence of others. That very gentleness, mistaken for timidity by most, was why he preferred solitude, why he kept his conversations short, and why fate chose him, of all people, to discover a wounded Apache woman hiding beneath a tarp in his barn on a morning that began like any other. Ethan had only stepped into the barn to fetch a coil of rope when he heard an unusual rustle, a faint shiver of movement he instantly recognized as foreign, because he knew every creak, every whisper of his barn. Pulling back the tarp carefully, he froze. Beneath it lay a young Apache woman with dark, fierce eyes, one hand clutching a long knife, the other pressed against a deep gash in her arm. She was weak, pale, trembling, but her gaze was sharp, unbroken, and filled with a warning that made Ethan raise his hand slowly in surrender. In a voice soft but steady, he assured her he meant no harm. After a moment that stretched painfully long, she loosened her grip on the blade and let it slip into the straw. Ethan tore strips from his shirt and wrapped her wound gently, his movements slow and respectful. He brought her water, helped her sit upright, and supported her weight when dizziness overtook her. Her name, she said quietly, was Ayanna. She had been separated from her people after an ambush led by bounty hunters desperate for reward money. Ethan knew helping her could bring violent trouble to his doorstep, but the wild strength in her eyes, mixed with the vulnerability of her injury, made the decision for him before he could think twice. He hid her in the barn loft, brought food under cover of night, and kept a lantern lit so she wouldn't wake alone in the dark. They spoke in gentle fragments at first. She told him about her people, her traditions, her courage. He told her about his work, his loneliness, his quiet world. As days passed, she began to heal, regaining the sharp strength in her posture. While Ethan found himself lingering near the barn more and more, offering shy smiles, he quickly turned away to hide. Whenever their hands brushed, he would pull back with a stammered apology that made her laugh, not mockingly, but softly, like a memory returning. As she grew stronger, she often sat at the barn door watching the mountains with longing in her eyes. She told Ethan she would soon return to her people, for her place was with them, but she promised she would never forget the man who saved her, who protected her without hesitation. Then one evening the world shifted. As the sky burned with shades of red and gold, 3 armed bounty hunters rode onto Ethan's property. Their boots hit the ground with a thud that made Ethan's blood run cold. He recognized them instantly. Ruthless men who captured and killed for coin. They demanded to search his land. Ethan's voice trembled, his hands shaking visibly, yet he refused. They mocked him, calling him a frightened little farmer, assuming he would fold under pressure. But something inside Ethan, something new, something born from the days spent protecting Ayanna, refused to break. When one hunter tried to force his way into the barn, Ethan stepped forward and blocked the door, his stance stiff, his jaw clenched, his fear swallowed behind a thin wall of determination. For a moment, Ethan believed they might shoot him. But before violence could erupt, a strong gust of wind swept across the valley, dust rising in swirling waves, and in that moment Ayanna appeared behind him. She stood tall, unshaken, her presence fierce enough to startle the hunters. She spoke to them in her language, strong and unwavering, her voice carrying the full weight of her identity and warning. The hunters hesitated, muttered curses, spat into the dirt, and retreated. When they were gone, Ethan turned to Ayanna expecting frustration, but instead she stepped close, placed a hand on his chest, and whispered that bravery was not the absence of fear. It was standing despite it. That night before dawn, she slipped away, returning to the mountains and her people. Ethan watched her silhouette disappear into the horizon, feeling a hollow ache bloom in his chest. Life returned to normal, but not for him. Every corner of the farm reminded him of her. The barn loft, the water bucket she had held, the lantern's glow in the dark. Weeks later, on a shimmering hot afternoon, Ethan heard a distant thunder, slow, steady, rhythmic, He stepped outside, shielding his eyes from the sun. Then he froze. A long line of Apache warriors rode toward him, dust rising behind them like a golden cloud. Their spears gleamed. Their horses marched in perfect unity. And at their head rode Ayanna, upright, proud, radiant. The formation stopped before him. Ayanna dismounted, her eyes locked on his with a depth that made his heart hammer. She spoke his name with reverence, thanking him for saving her life. Then she turned to her people, speaking powerful words he could not understand. An elder stepped forward and explained that Ayanna had told them everything: the rescue, the protection, the bravery. Among their people, such actions were not forgotten. Ayanna had asked for permission to return to him, to stand beside him, to honor him, not out of debt but out of choice. And so the tribe had come to make an offering. They were asking for Ethan's hand, acknowledging him with respect and welcoming him into their world if he accepted. Ethan, stunned, felt a storm of emotions crash through him. He had always believed he would live and die alone, his quiet nature mistaken for weakness. And yet here he stood, surrounded by warriors, being offered a bond rooted in honor and love. Ayanna stepped closer, taking his hand with a gentleness that contrasted her warrior spirit. She told him she saw strength where others saw silence, and that she wished to build a life with him. Not to repay him, but because her heart had chosen him. Ethan's breath trembled. He confessed he didn't know if he was strong enough, brave enough, or worthy enough to stand beside her. She smiled softly, whispering, "You are enough, Ethan. You always have been." Her words settled deep within him. With a slow nod, shy, hesitant but firm, Ethan accepted. The tribe raised their spears in unison, a gesture of great honor, and Ayanna moved beside him, her presence fitting into his life as seamlessly as dawn fits into morning. They stood together as the valley wind swept around them, binding their worlds together, quiet farmer and fierce warrior. Two souls joined by fate, courage, and compassion. Their story, once born in secrecy and fear, now stood boldly in the light. And dear viewers, if you want more powerful, emotional, and unforgettable stories like this, stories that blend courage, love, destiny, and culture, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now, because countless journeys just as breathtaking are coming your way, and you won't want to miss a single chapter of the adventures ahead.